Welcome back to the Kosi Arsenal channel. My name is Kosi. Welcome back to a brand new video. There is still a big chance that Arsenal could send Viktor Gyokerez this summer. According to Nicolo Shearer, the deal is not dead, the deal is not off, and talks between Arsenal and Sporting have been recently known. Now, that means that Arsenal are yet to decide between Šeško and Viktor Gyokerez, like it was reported a couple of days ago. Arsenal are still in between Viktor Gyokerez and Benjamin Šeško. What I'm going to do in this video is to let you know of all the new updates on this deal. Shall also be running through some of the positions, some of the things that we know on this deal to try and understand where Arsenal are on the Viktor Gyokerez deal. But of course, I'll give you an update on the Benjamin Šeško deal as well. So make sure if you watch this video at exactly 9 p.m. later on, you also tune in for the Benjamin Šeško deal. I'll try to give you where Arsenal are with the Benjamin Šeško deal, what have we done in the last few hours, and so much and so forth. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. I know you want Viktor Gyokerez as the Arsenal striker next season, but it looks like the financial package Arsenal have to deal with is a little bit higher than what we have to deal with when it comes to Benjamin Šeško, and that could be a major reason as to why Arsenal go for Šeško over Viktor Gyokerez. I think Andre Bata and Mikel are trying to understand what are the deals that can bring in maximum quality, maximum value, but can also be market opportunities in order to allow us to do all the business that we want to do this summer. Arsenal want to sign about like 6-7 players, so you have to, minimize costs, but also maximize quality as well. But let's start off with that report from Nicolo Shearer, very well positioned when it comes to Portuguese stories, and he says that talks are ongoing between Arsenal and Sporting Lisbon to try and get a deal done, especially in terms of the structure of payment, but also in terms of understanding the overall package. Now, we know that Sporting are willing to sell for 60 to 70 million euros, but that is not the end of the story. They might want to sell for 60, 70 million euros, and that makes the deal a little bit cheaper. It makes a deal look like a market opportunity, right? But what Arsenal are trying to understand when in terms of talking to Sporting is how much are we supposed to pay upfront of this 65 or 70 million euros? Like, if it's 70 million euros and Arsenal have to pay 50 million euros upfront, then it's not a good deal. It's not a good deal like we thought. Also, Arsenal trying to understand how much time are you giving us to pay this 70 million euros. If you're giving us like 1 or 2 years or 18 months to pay 70 million euros, and Arsenal have to go and sign Zubimendi and sign a left winger and sign a goalkeeper and sign another defender, then maybe the deal isn't as lucrative and as enticing as we all thought. So Arsenal and Sporting are trying to negotiate this deal. They're trying to understand how much time can Arsenal pay the money, maybe 70 million euros. How much time do we have to pay the money? And of course, if there is ample time, how much are the installments gonna be? Especially the first installment this summer. Is it less than 30 million euros? Is it less than 40 million euros? What are Arsenal comfortable with in terms of paying, and what are Sporting comfortable with in terms of receiving as the first payment? So that's where we are. Nicolo Shearer says that talks are ongoing, and I think this story directly correlates with the Sky Sports German story, where they said Arsenal are in talks with the representatives of RB Leipzig to sign Benjamin Šeško, but they're trying to understand the structure of the deal. They're trying to understand what the deal is going to be like. So I think this is where Arsenal literally do exploratory talks with the club to understand what exactly is the package that you want, and what is the format that this package is going to be paid. Now, of course, things will have changed between now and last year. Last year, Sporting only wanted 100 million, and that was it. You couldn't go in there with less than 100 million euros and you get Viktor Gyokerez. This summer, things have changed. They're willing to accept 60 million euros. They're willing to accept 70 million euros, but that is because they're seeing the guy is getting older. That's number one. But also, I think they're looking at his numbers and they're like, he has replicated the season before, and this season has potentially been better. What if we sell now? We sell for a cheaper price, but much of the money has to be paid up front. So I'll let you know what the two clubs come up with, but at the moment, talks are still ongoing according to Nicolo Shearer. Now, like I said, a transfer fee is not going to be a problem 70 million euros is the maximum Arsenal or any other club are going to have to pay. And that's why all of us have been saying this is a good deal, this is a market opportunity. A striker like Viktor Gyokerez to go for 70 million euros or less than that. It could be 60 million euros, it could be I don't know, 65 million euros, it could be 62 million euros. The deal could be cheaper than 70 million euros. So the price we know, that much we know. As long as we can get to pay that, Arsenal will have the player. Now, of course, in terms of how easy the deal is, they've already agreed between the Players' Cup and Sporting that this summer, if a good offer comes in, 100%, the player will be let go to explore other opportunities. The player wants to play for a bigger club, to play in the UEFA Champions League, but also to compete for meaningful titles. Now, as an Arsenal fan, I don't have the right to use the term meaningful titles. I don't have the right. But the reason that's why I've used it is if you win the Portuguese La Liga and then you win the Taça de Portugal, I think they're very good trophies. They definitely add to your chamber of trophies, but they're not as heavy as adding the Premier League to your collection. They're not as heavy as adding the FA Cup to your collection. They're not as heavy as adding the UCL to your collection. So Gyokerez wants to go elsewhere and challenge for these meaningful trophies or big trophies, right? And that's, we have an agreement between the player and Sporting. If any club comes in, whether you Arsenal, whether wherever you are, you can get the deal done for just 60 to 70 million euros. Now, positive talks have been held between the player and Arsenal. That is true. Between the players' representatives and Arsenal. I'm not sure if Bata has talked to Gyokerez himself, but we were told and we know that Gyokerez has been impressed with the Arsenal project. So Andrea Bata talked to the representatives of the player. They flew to London. Talks were held. Of course, they talked to other clubs in London as well. It wasn't just Arsenal. But they were excited and they were really on board with the Arsenal project in terms of where Arsenal are, but also in terms of where Arsenal want to be. And also at the moment, the player is 100% okay with what Arsenal are and the role that he would actually play in this Arsenal project. So I think, to be honest, Arsenal under Andrea Bata have done a great job selling the project to Gyokerez and his camp. And positive talks have been held. It is believed that if Arsenal really pounce on this interest, they are going to get a player. Even the clubs around, Manchester United, Chelsea, Tottenham, they're waiting for Arsenal to see, are Arsenal really going to activate their situation, or should we go in? Because they believe Arsenal have done more groundwork, Arsenal have convinced the player, and Arsenal are in a much better position to sign the player as compared to them. But there is a problem, and that problem is wages. So, according to Ben Jacobs, the players' wage demands are going to make the deal a little bit more expensive. And of course, we have another problem that we're going to talk about apart from the wage of the players. So the player is asking for 250,000 and above, potentially 270, 280,000. Now, you know Arsenal, you know our problem, right? You don't know. Our problem is that we have given Kai Havertz 280,000, and he's not a Kylian Mbappe. His status at the club is not reflected by his performances. It's only reflected by the love Mikel Arteta has for him and the value that Mikel Arteta attaches to him, right? So if he's earning 200k or 280k and is the most expensive player at Arsenal, that puts us in a very, very dangerous situation. Because players like Viktor Gyokerez are going to look at it, right? And it's quite tricky because Arsenal this summer are linked with heavy profiles. Rafael is going to want to earn more than Kai Havertz. Rodrigo is going to want to earn more than Kai Havertz. And a couple of other players are there. So Gyokerez is saying, if I come in and you guys can give me the same wages as Kai Havertz, I am absolutely open. Now, Arsenal saying we are not going that far, right? That makes the deal a little bit more expensive because then he would be earning about 12 million. Earning 12 million for a space of 5 years, that is 60 million. So 60 million plus the 60 million Arsenal gonna pay, that is 120 million. And then we have another problem, and it is with the agent fees, which are very, very high as well. So this is where the first stumbling block comes in. Before we talk about Mikel Arteta not liking the player, before we talk about Arsenal's love for Kai Havertz to stop playing, and therefore maybe Šeško is a much better option, this is where the first stumbling block is coming in. That the whole deal could be worth 130 million, despite the fact that you're going to pay 60 million euros only to Sporting Lisbon. And Arsenal are very, very smart when it comes to that. It has happened to us before when it comes to the Nicola Pepe deals, right? So Arsenal are trying to be very careful here. If you want us to pay 70 million euros to Sporting, we are not giving you 12 million euros. So I think they want to give him about maybe 8 or 7 million euros per year. I don't know whether that really reflects the status of Gyokerez at Arsenal, and I don't know whether a club like Chelsea are going to sit back and see a player like Viktor Gyokerez go to Arsenal at such petty wages. They're gonna come in and they will try to challenge that deal, right? But that is what we know about the overall deal. And Jacob Ben says that at the moment, Arsenal are looking at this deal. It's a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit higher in terms of total package and expense. That is why they're siding with the Benjamin Šeško deal. But even if I look at the Benjamin Šeško deal, we'll talk about the Benjamin Šeško deal. But if you're telling me that Arsenal are leaving Gyokerez because the deal could rise up to 130 million euros, I doubt that, because across 5 years, if you're going to pay 80 million euros if you're gonna pay 80 million euros for Šeško, how much are you gonna pay him? I think the deal could also end in like 110 million euros or 115 million euros. I don't know, but we'll talk about that. In terms of the competition, it's Chelsea and Tottenham, right? But the player wants to play in the UEFA Champions League, right? So Tottenham are in the UCL by virtue of winning the Europa League. Chelsea obviously qualified, and Arsenal. So these are the three clubs that we know of as very much interested in signing Viktor Gyokerez, and Arsenal stands a bigger chance than any of them. If we can go out there and make a bid and agree agent fees and agree personal terms very well, Arsenal have a bigger chance than Chelsea. We have a bigger chance than Tottenham. There is no question about that. We are seen as one of the elite, ripe projects in Europe that is just waiting to explode. But of course, I'll be very wary of Chelsea. They've got the money, they've got the willingness to spend the money, and they're such a threat when it comes to transfers, aren't they? They're such a very, very big threat. And so they're also a very good project. I just think that they just need a few corrections here and there, and everything will be absolutely fine, in my opinion. Okay, what else? Okay, now there is this that is being seen as the second option to Benjamin Šeško. That much we really don't know, because David Ornstein has said you can't separate the two right now within Arsenal. Now, I'm one of those people that believe Arsenal already know who they're going to sign, and Mikel Arteta knows who he wants. Whether it's Šeško or Viktor Gyokerez, I think a decision has been made. And we are also hearing Julian Alvarez. Of course, I'm not thinking that Arsenal will sign Julian Alvarez, but if there is a story like that, it shows you that Arsenal are still open to more ideas. If it is Mikel Arteta to make the final decision, he's still very open to more ideas. If it is Bata that is going to make the final decision, he's still open to more ideas in terms of a completely different target, or in terms of we have been really focused on Šeško, but there's something new, interesting on Gyokerez. Can we look at it? Yeah, I think that's where we are. Arteta is not a big fan of Viktor Gyokerez. It's not surprising, because when you think about Viktor Gyokerez and you think about the kind of forwards that Mikel wants, Hugo Ekitike, Gabriel Jesus, Benjamin Šeško, Alexander Isak, you can see the profile is very different from Viktor Gyokerez. Gyokerez is like a Kun Aguero, isn't he? Yeah, I think he's like a Kun Aguero, and then Šeško is like an Alexander Isak, Gabriel Jesus kind of striker. This kind of forwards that just don't score goals, they do so much more, right? So, of course, Kun Aguero did much more as well. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to downplay his game. So Arteta is not a big fan of Viktor Gyokerez. I think this one is gonna play a very big part in whether he comes in or not. And I would say this deal is a 4 out of 10. Has, in terms of chances of it happening, I would say 4 or 4.5 out of 10. It has dropped drastically ever since we got that report on Benjamin Sesko, ever since Arsenal entered talks with Benjamin Sesko. Because I've not seen any other club that is so serious on Benjamin Sesko. Maybe they're working on the deals behind the scenes, but at the moment, Arsenal are the most serious on this deal, especially this Sesko one. Hit that button. See you soon.